Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time. Today, I want to talk about something. We've spoken about boundaries and the importance of boundaries, but today I'm specifically talking about it in relation to boundaries that parents have to learn to draw for themselves with children, and how children also, when I say children, I'm not talking about, 10, 11, 12. I'm talking about, maybe teenagers, and as they grow up into adults. You have a lot of kids today in the age group of 21, 22, even 30 still living with their parents. So I'm talking about both sides, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because it has nothing to do with nutrition or anything like that, but a lot of people have so much of emotional stress between families, within families, between the child or a young adult and the parents, or vice versa. And for me, that's important to correct, because if there is an environment of toxicity at home or between sibling relationships or parents and kids, no amount of nutrition and exercise is going to work. If your level of stress is at that level, there are so many people today who need to just change the environment where they are in order to start getting better. We're all aware that emotional stress, and especially related to family, kids, adults, all of these things, these are the worst emotional issues, because we have a blood connection between us, our kids, vice versa. And that's why broken relationships and families hurt more than anything else. So over the last couple of years, I've been trying to figure out, like, what is it that goes wrong between parents and, young children and parents and all of that stuff. And it really comes down because, we're trying to fix a problem, but the child is like, everything's so toxic at home. The moment I come home, I don't feel like eating, or I only feel like eating junk food. Obviously, you feel like eating junk when you're stressed. Or you have parents who, are losing their health because constantly, there are fights with the children, or a lot of parents are trying to maintain great relationships with the kids on the outside, but inside they feel resentment and bitterness, and you know all that negativity of, I don't know why my kids are like this, and all of that stuff. So as kids, as children, I want to stop saying kids, because I'm not referring to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, because honestly, that's the time that parents have to call the shots for the kids, because children don't have that ability. You can draw certain boundaries, but not everything. Otherwise it becomes who's the parent and who's the kid. So I'm just talking about young adults, and I'm talking about parents, okay, or children. So and then we have a lot of young kids who come and say that, Luke, I just can't be at home. My parents, everything is becoming so toxic. They don't understand. They interfere in my life. They don't give me, they still think I'm a kid and all of that stuff. So it is so important for us. I realize that because we don't have boundaries, people infiltrate our private spaces. Now, a lot of people say, oh, we don't need boundaries in family. Everything is open, but that's a lie, and that's a myth, and you need to change that. Okay. Everyone needs a boundary. Would you like it if your parents kept telling you how to live your life? No, because, they're operating out of their boundary. Would parents like it if their children, would parents like it if their children constantly went up to them and insulted them or crossed their boundaries and told parents what to do in their own homes, or how to spend their own money, or what to spend their money on? Absolutely not. The parents wouldn't like that as well. So there's a fine line between love, there's a fine line between good parenting, there's a fine line between respect, and all of these things. In fact, for love to work better, understanding to work better, respect to work better, we all need our boundaries. If I don't define my boundaries, you will disrespect me in some way, because you will cross that line, and then I'm going to feel disrespected. So all of us have to draw boundaries in life. It's period. That's why schools have rules, and those, in a way, those are boundaries. Everywhere there are rules. These are the boundaries of the law. You don't cross them, you don't get into them, or you get into trouble. There are boundaries everywhere. And it is so important for us today to understand the importance of drawing boundaries. Okay. A lot of people say, but won't that make the relationship too formal? No, in fact, it'll make it better. Because a lot of people say that, oh, we don't want to draw boundaries and all, it looks like, you know, uh, it's mean, and it's like kind of, controlling, and it's kind of, selfish. Well, you're not happy right now because people are infiltrating your boundaries. At the same time, you don't want to do it and you're still unhappy. So the whole point is boundaries, and we're going to learn how to do that today, can be drawn in a very respectful way. And it all comes down to communication. So when communication gets broken down in any relationship, that's where most of the issues start in relationships. Assumption, speculation, our one little thought or a doubt becomes a story or an illusion, which is really never true. So I'll give you a couple of more examples. You know, if you don't have your boundaries drawn at work, people are going to walk over you like you're a doormat. If you don't have your boundaries drawn in a relationship, okay, your spouse or your partners or whatever will just constantly, you'll think they're taking advantage of you. Maybe they're not. You've just not drawn your boundaries and told them what is okay, what is not okay, how you like to be spoken to, what is a complete no. You know, all of these things have to be communicated. Of course, there's a different point where people still disrespect your boundaries in spite of you drawing them. But the whole point is most people don't draw their boundaries at the start of a relationship. You know, like, so at the start of a relationship, if your partner doesn't know the real you, because at the start of the relationship, everyone's trying to show their best sides. And sometimes you will even accept certain things that your partner is doing because you don't want to make them feel bad. You want to be accepted in their life. But you make a very big mistake at that point, because if you don't draw the boundaries then, trying to draw it 5 or 10 years down later is going to be very, very difficult. And your partner is going to say, then why did you even marry me? You know, why do you fall in love with me? Why didn't you tell me this up front? You know, I thought it was this way, I thought it was that. So you see miscommunication because our self-esteem is low, our self-confidence is low. We all want to be accepted. We don't want to correct people. But then the moment we spend, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, everything changes. And all of a sudden you become this cleanliness freak, or you become something that you were not, and your spouse or your partner can't handle it. So it is so important today. So for, like, you know, teenagers, as they get their own opinions and their belief systems and all of that stuff, it's very important that parents sit together with them and you learn to draw your boundaries. So what are things which are not okay? It's like setting the rules, okay? Your kids are in your house right now. What are the things? You can be a loving parent, you can give them the world, that's not a problem, but there have to be certain boundaries that things operate in. So when you live here, when you're at home, you have certain jobs to do, whatever it is, whether it's the dishes, cleaning your room, tidying your bed, all of these things have to be very, very clear. You can't have your servants doing it all the time. And then on one fine day, you decide to wake up and make your child more responsible. And then you call them in and tell them clean up their own rooms and stuff like that. Of course, you're going to get a tantrum. Of course, you're going to get some amount of resistance. So it is so important for you to draw those boundaries. What are your expectations from your children as you're bringing them up, from your teenagers, the way they can behave? So yes, you can open up for expression, your teenager, and you keep communication, but there's a way that they do it. So you can tell me everything you want, but with respect, no foul language, no breaking things at home when you're angry. These are our boundaries. You're free to express yourself. We are allowing you to talk and be yourself. But these are the boundaries that you have to operate in. If you don't draw these boundaries, then what happens is your kids start using foul language with you, you know, around the house, and then you go to priests and, you know, in temples and churches and all your friends, and you wonder what you've done wrong to bring them up, or you wonder and you blame society for, you know, the kids being spoiled, you blame the schools, but you've just not drawn your boundaries the right way. All of that may be true, but have you drawn your boundaries? Period. Yes, your children will pick up things in college and university and all of that stuff, but what are your boundaries at home? That is so important, so that the day you lash out, because everyone has a set point, after some point, you are going to get annoyed with your kid, and then your kids never faced that before. And then they're going to start having that whole, you know, teen behavior or young adult behavior with you, and it becomes all a power play. Oh, I'm the dad, I'm the mom, and I'm the child. Don't tell me what to do and all of that stuff. That all happens when the boundaries are not drawn, period. The boundaries have to be drawn. For that, you need to know the boundaries that you have to grow with your kid, draw with the kids if there's work they need to do or whatever it is. And you have to sit across the table and do that. At the same time, you open it up and let them draw boundaries. It's not an ego issue. It is absolutely not an ego issue, because your kids have grown up right now. They have their own mindset, belief systems, opinions, and all of that stuff. So you should give them that space to also express. Okay. I mean, if they are arguing with your boundaries and they don't find it, you got to hold your stance over there, because it's not a debate. You've already decided who's the parent, you. I'm talking about other things. So they don't want you to interfere in their lives, ask too many questions, you know, keep picking you up from college or interfering when your friends are, you know, they have the right to also express themselves. So you are also very aware of what's going on in their selves and their thinking. And then we draw boundaries. We draw boundaries. You know, a lot of kids hate when their parents call them nicknames in front of the kids and all of that stuff. And if their child has told you that and you're still doing it, you are infiltrating their boundaries, which results in them being angry or cutting you away from their friends or not bringing their friends home anymore. So we really need to understand the importance of boundaries without ego and pride. Extremely, extremely important. Let's take the example of a young girl or boy who's grown up to 21, 23, 24. They're no longer studying, but they're still living home with their parents. Okay, and you see so many issues happening. Yeah, everyone says there's love in the family, all of that stuff, but there are issues over here because now this child is staying so long and she comes home anytime she wants and leaves things out from the fridge and does all of these things, and the parents get angry. At the same time, they don't want to tell the kid because they feel the kid will get angry with them and not love them, but they're still upset. Now, if you're truly accepting that behavior from your child, it should not make you angry or upset or make you even have to talk to your friends and say, I hope she leaves soon or goes soon and finds a partner and gets married so we have our privacy at home. That means you're unhappy. True acceptance means you will accept it without an issue. If you're okay with that, go ahead and do that. But you have to still draw boundaries. You have to still draw boundaries. They are staying in your house at the end of the day. What are the rules that you want to maintain so that you are comfortable and you are happy? And so many parents come and say, you know, Luke, we're unhappy. We can't even sleep on time because they call their friends over all the time. They're listening to music, smoking in the house. And I'm like, who's the parent? Who is the parent? You've not drawn your boundaries with your child. If your child wants to live with you at the age of 25, 28, 30, draw the boundaries. It's as simple as that. Or go and find your own place to live. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent, but if people can't respect your boundaries and it's affecting your health, mental and physical, it is your fault. It is your fault. And at the same time, kids have to learn to respect those boundaries. They can't go on that, oh, you're my parent, so if you're my parent, I'm allowed to abuse you. I'm allowed to disrespect you. I'm allowed to tell you what to do. I'm allowed to tell you how to use your money and all of that stuff. That's very, very wrong. That's a very poor attitude of a mature child or a mature adult. Okay, that's someone taking advantage of their parents, not respecting their boundaries. So you see, it is so important. Let's give you another example of common cases we have. Okay, your young daughter delivers a child or your son and all of that stuff. And now you have to draw boundaries with your parents. Once you're married, you got to draw boundaries with your parents. You know, the mother-in-law issue in India, I would say if I have to put a percentage tag to the amount of emotional health problems it causes in our country, it would be more than 80 to 85%. Because when we talk to all of our patients, you know, who have cancers and deadly diseases and all of these stuff, and they know it's caused by emotional stress, the first reason that comes out is my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law. And I've tried to understand that. What is this whole issue of the Indian mother-in-law? And I'm not being derogatory or disrespectful. I'm talking about the truth about it. And it all comes down, they're not bad people, but boundaries have not been drawn. There have been no boundaries drawn. Okay, once your son is married to someone else, okay, they become a couple. The mother-in-law has no right to interfere or control the son or control the wife anymore. They are a separate unit. They can be guided, they can be all of that stuff. And half the men are weak out there. They say that, oh, I can't do anything, you know, it's my mom. You know, she's being rude to my wife, but I can't say anything. I can't do anything. Be a man. Be a man. Draw the boundary. So I'm telling women out there and men, if you can't draw boundaries, don't get married. Okay, don't get married because you're going to have a very unhappy marriage after that, where you're trying to keep your mother happy. Of course, she's your mom. She is your mom. You're trying to keep your parents, but they are controlling your life and telling you how much money to spend, you know, when to sleep, how to cook for the family, what to do, constantly comparing you to some other sibling in the family. That is bullshit. That is not marriage. That is not a family. That is power play at the highest level, driven from insecurity and a lack of boundaries. There have to be boundaries. So a woman has to be strong enough to say that, fine, I'm marrying you. I understand I'm going to be in a joint family and I understand I'm going to be staying with you. These are my boundaries. These are my boundaries. And at that point, the husband or to-be husband has to respect them or refuse them. Hey, sorry, if my mom interferes, I can't do anything. That's it. Make a decision right now whether you want to marry the guy or not. It's as simple as that. But don't lower your boundaries, okay, showing that you're all accepting, and then get into that family and then raise your boundaries and suffer. That's your fault again. It is so important for us to draw our boundaries because it brings about more respect and more love. You see, love is an energy. It can go up, down, change, all of that stuff because of circumstances, different feelings and everything else. Everyone who says, oh, I'm marrying you because I love you, it's going to change and change because of these circumstances. Okay, so now there's a controlling mother-in-law in the picture. Okay, but this girl married her husband because he loves her. And now they're fighting because she wants the husband to take a stand for her in front of the mother-in-law, but the husband's not doing it. So all of a sudden, they're not in love. They were in love, but they're not in love because of someone else. Does it make sense? It is all because there are no boundaries drawn. Draw your boundaries. It is so important for you to draw your boundaries, and the husband has to draw the boundaries with the wife. Has to. Okay, don't show that you accept my family and all of that stuff. And when we get married, you come and tell me, I don't want this person staying here. I don't want your mother's frame hanging above our bed, all of that crap. And these are real problems, people. I'm talking to you not from a book. I'm talking to you from real life experience of hundreds of people that we counsel who are sick. They don't need nutrition. They don't need more exercise. They need to solve the environment that they're staying in because they can't heal. It's not a healing environment. So I think parents, all this emotion and in the name of, oh, but I love my daughter, I love my child, but you're still unhappy. So how does that mean love in any way? It is okay to draw boundaries. As your parents grow older and older and you suddenly decide to move back into your parents' home, you're going to really have to respect their boundaries because they've followed a certain routine for life. You can't just come back into their lives and change everything. They may do it out of love, but they will be angry and they will be upset and they will be all of that stuff. The same way, you're married, you moved into your own home, you have your new life, and your parents keep coming unannounced and doing this and buying things for your home with you telling them not to, telling you how to bring up your children. Advising is a different thing, but constantly going on about it, feeding your kids when you have a particular routine in the house not to do that, that is interference. You got to draw your boundaries with your parents as well. So it's two ways. You have to draw your boundaries and they have to draw your boundaries. And then when we learn to respect people's boundaries, then what happens is there's no power play anymore. There is no power play. You have clarity. So someone joins your organization, they draw the boundaries like this is great. This is a red flag. This is no tolerance, zero tolerance. At least they've drawn the boundaries so you know what to cross and what not to cross. You know your place and where you need to stay. It is so important for that. But today, a lot of parents are emotionally weak. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's not the fault of the parents. It's the way society is today. We don't want to correct our children. We don't want to draw boundaries. I don't know why, because we think it's going to mentally scar them. But the most mentally scarred children and generation exists now because of that. And you go one generation above where kids were, probably slapped a little bit or punished and stuff like that. To each his own. I'm not here to say anything about that. Okay, they've turned out to be strong people emotionally. They don't go around killing themselves and emotionally threatening people because they're strong. They're brought up with discipline, boundaries, and respect. But all of those three things are lacking in our generation. Why? Because we've removed those boundaries. It's like, oh, it's a hippie world. Let our children say what they want. It's okay. She's abusing me. She's expressing herself. Let her get it out of me. You fail. You can still change that relationship, but it isn't like that. Because are you truly happy? Or do you go and see a therapist and complain to the therapist? All your friends, you're showing them you allow open speech from your daughter or your son, but you're seeing a therapist because it's driving you insane. You're bitter, you have resentment, you have anger, you have all of these issues. So let's be truthful about all of these things, and it comes down to drawing boundaries. Boundaries, the first rule of boundaries, it has to be clear and precise, period. Clear and precise, okay? You have a right to draw your boundaries. Now, boundaries can be debated, okay? They can be absolutely debated. So let's say, for example, one of the most common problems of parents in India whose kids are studying in universities across the US and all of that stuff. They're sick, they have issues, the parents, and I'm just trying to say, get a good night of sleep. Oh, I can't. American time is 2 o'clock in the morning. I need to talk to my son, my daughter. London time is this, that. Okay, great, okay? Have your kids asked you to call them? Number one, no, but I need to check on them. No problem. Draw your boundaries. Okay, tell your kids, I will call you on Monday and Friday. Okay, between this time, let's agree. The kid says, yes, mom, that's great for you. Because half the kids are complaining to us that, please just tell my mom to back off. Tell my dad to back off. I don't need to talk to them all the time. I want my privacy. I'm a kid. I'm growing up. So you see no boundaries, but either party doesn't want to tell one another because they're afraid of hurting them. But they're still hurting irrespective. So you're better off drawing boundaries and then going to sleep so you can look after your health. It's as simple as that. So communication is so important, and people are scared of communication because they don't want confrontation. They don't want their child to react, or they don't want to hurt their parents by drawing boundaries. But it is so important to do that. So the first rule of drawing a boundary is be clear and precise. Be clear and precise. These things are okay, mom and dad, or mom and dad to the kid. These things are okay. Yeah, can you imagine the life? And this is a very common situation in India. The parents have slogged, worked hard, tireless nights, put their kids in good institutes, set them up, kids are married, and now they're relaxing in their retired lives at home. They have their own beautiful routines. And then something happens and the kids come back and stay with them and their entire life is completely gone. And then those children have grandchildren and they expect their parents to stay at home and look after them. They'd even shout at them when it's not done the right way. This is not parents' fault again. No boundaries. You can do all of those things, but draw your boundaries. I will babysit your children, okay, maybe once a week or twice a week, but the other time is your mom and my time. We need to go out. We have bridge games to play. We want to go to the club. But that selfless acting parent, oh, I'm here all the time for your grandchildren. If they're truly doing it, you're blessed and you're lucky. But most of them are unhappy doing it. They just don't want to say no to you. So you got to draw your boundaries at every stage in your life, with your partners, with your parents, with your children. They have to know what is okay and what is not okay. Because if you've not drawn that boundary, you're a doormat. And when you get walked on, don't sit and complain and whine and blame and find fault with everyone. The first fault is with you because you didn't draw your boundaries. So number one, draw your boundaries. It should be clear and precise. And now I am communicating my boundaries to you, okay? I can do it very assertively. I don't have to do it with arrogance. I don't have to do it with ego. I don't have to do it with authority. Assertive. That, hey, mom, these are the things going on. And right now, when I'm chilling with my friends, I don't like if you keep calling me. It's my private time. If it's something urgent, then I'm always going to be there for you. If there's something wrong, I will call you. So I am stating clear and precise boundaries to my mom, but very assertively. Very assertive. I don't want to beg, mom, please don't do this. It annoys me and I no, be assertive, clear. You're drawing boundaries. Okay. You're drawing boundaries over here. The next thing is compassion and understanding. Okay. Sometimes we need to understand why people are doing that. Like kids have to understand that their parents genuinely care about them. Okay. And parents need to understand that their kids genuinely care about them as well. So while you're drawing your boundaries, listen, understand, allow some amount of compassion and tolerance because it's difficult for both parties. Okay. Even though you've drawn the boundaries and let's say, mom still comes and annoys you or tells you what to do with your kid all the time or, whatever, go on like a broken record. Mom, I told you don't interfere when it comes to my kid. Mom, I told you don't feed my kid stuff, crap and stuff like that. Go on repeating it. It's difficult for them. It's difficult, but do it nicely, do it kindly. Don't get annoyed and do it because then it's going to become, more emotional and all of those things. Limits. Don't you have a limit right now? Everyone has a limit. So why are you scared of expressing these limits to people? Okay, why are you scared of expressing these limits? All of us don't like certain conversations and all of that stuff, but we have to have our limits. If we sit there and pretend that we're okay with someone's behavior, it is your fault. That person doesn't know it's annoying you until you draw your limit and you draw your boundary and you tell them you're crossing the limit. Stop. This much is okay. I don't like it if you do this. Okay, you have a right to your anger. But this is crossing the point. This is crossing the limit. You have a right to your nagging, but this is crossing the limit. This is crossing the limit. You have to draw your boundaries or become a doormat, be walked on, and then everything that follows post that. Learn to appreciate as well. When you've drawn your boundaries, it's always nice to appreciate, hey, mom, dad, it's really cool. Thanks for not interfering with this part. And, my wife's happy, my husband's happy, whatever, and stuff like that. Appreciate, because like I said, it's a difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. Now, the first thing is you need to know, what are your boundaries, kids as well as parents? What are you okay with? Truly okay with it, okay? Don't try to be a Mother Teresa and, try to be okay with everything and stuff. She was different. She truly accepted suffering and everything else. Most people can't do that. Most people are always talking about waiting for their kids to get married so that they can leave home or doing this and doing that. That's not a bad thing. But if you draw your boundaries, you are in a better space. And today I've spoken about kids, parents, kids. This is in all aspects of your life. If you don't draw a boundary in your own relationship with your own partner, okay, then you're going to be that person who feels used, always complaining that, oh, I'm taken advantage of. You've not drawn your boundaries. No one can take advantage of you if you have drawn your boundaries. And if you've drawn your boundaries and something, you can always politely tell them, listen, okay, you can talk to me like this, but if you raise your voice, I'm going to hang up. If you raise your voice, I'm going to walk out of the room because you're crossing your boundary. Okay, someone may still get angry because the ego and pride's hurt, but after a while, they're going to calm down. So half the people suffering out there today, and I will tell you, they are suffering because they have not drawn their boundaries. And even if they've drawn their boundaries, they don't have limits. So someone's crossed your boundary maybe the 10th or 15th time, and you're not taking action. Your boundary is not a boundary. It's like an invalid threat. It's not a boundary. So please learn to draw your boundaries. Even when you get into a relationship, don't be a doormat. Don't be a doormat. That's why I always tell people, before getting into a relationship, it's okay, be single for a while, but build your self-esteem and your self-confidence, because the worst thing to do in life is to get into a relationship or be in a relationship where your self-esteem and your self-confidence is low. Because what happens is you stay a doormat, because your self-esteem is so weak, you can't draw a boundary. So just to be accepted, you become people's doormat. You allow them to say what they want, and then one fine day, your self-confidence gets up slowly more and more, and then you try to change, and everyone's trying to like, where did this come from? Because they're used to you being a doormat. So draw your boundaries. It is so important. There is a big difference. You know, half the kids and young adults say, Luke, you know, our parents keep saying they love us, they love us, they love us. We really don't feel they love us. And I ask them, why? What makes you say that? Because that's a pretty powerful statement. And they'll say, they love us, they'll give us our freedom, but they're constantly nagging us, constantly doing this, constantly doing that. You know, even though we're not doing anything bad, even though we're not, you know, whatever. You know, like my mom constantly tells me, don't smoke. I understand. I'm okay with a nagging because I just don't want to create a confrontation. And I know I'm doing something wrong. And then I tell parents, I said, don't go on thinking you're loving your child by giving them that much of freedom without boundaries. You know, because this is what your child actually thinks of you. And the same thing with kids. They say, Luke, my parents are so stubborn. We're trying to spend money on them, buy them nice food, buy them nice things, but we come home and it's still in the fridge, it's expired. We got to know they gave it to someone else, we're hurt. So you don't understand. You know, yes, you care for them, you're doing something, but their mindset is completely different. So we got to draw boundaries. Draw boundaries. If parents are not going to use the stuff kids buy, tell your kids, don't waste your money. I know you care for me, but I don't think I want to shift from white bread to brown bread. Draw your boundary. It's as simple as that. Or you're going to end up getting hurt when you go home and see that they've left all the brown bread but they've eaten the white bread. You've not drawn their boundary. Your parents are right and you are right. But the hurt and the emotion is coming because you'll have not drawn your boundaries. So go ahead and do this exercise. And you don't have to do it assertively and say, come on, let's sit down and draw our boundaries. We all have to do it very, very nicely and graciously. Like, you know, I have my boundaries drawn for everything. Sometimes, like I always say, draw your boundaries in pencil, because sometimes we can change the boundaries if we want. Okay, sometimes to be a little bit compassionate, I may want to extend my boundary. I may want to broaden my boundary because I've decided to be a little more tolerant, or I think it's the right thing to do. Don't be in a rigid boundary and then just become this person. Sorry, out of my boundary? No. In my boundary? Yes. No. There should be emotion and human feeling and compassion along with that as well. So this is the importance of growing your boundaries. So anyone who's having these difficult relationships and all of that stuff, it's difficult. It is difficult. There is no perfect family out there. There is no perfect relationship. I'll tell you this 100 times over and over again. Every family has their ups and downs. Every relationship has their ups and downs. There are nasty things being said, property fights, all of these things. But how do you keep it all together and at least stay a family or stay a couple or do all of these things together? And one thing that you do, one thing, if you draw your boundaries, you start learning to respect yourself. You have self-respect. If you don't draw your boundaries, people are going to rob you of your respect. And then you come and say, no one respects me. You don't deserve that respect. You don't deserve it because no one knows. You're allowing them to walk over you. You've not defined your boundaries and what is okay with you. So I'm going to end it right now. Go home and start with yourself, your boundaries. If you're a husband and wife or parents, as parents together, draw your boundaries. What is okay? Because you can't have one parent doing something and another parent, you know, allowing it to happen. You know, so we draw our boundaries. You know, this is your curfew time. This is this, all of that stuff. And kids tell their parents, these are my boundaries. Don't go through my phone. Don't go through my diaries. I don't want that. These are my, and if you'll agree on everything as a family and all of that stuff, it can go into a debate. It can all go into a debate. Like, yeah, I'm giving you pocket money. I want to know what you spend it on, because what if you're doing drugs? All of these things can come out. It builds bonds better. But when you start fighting because there are no boundaries, there's insecurity. The kids think that the parents don't trust them. The parents think that the kids don't trust them. And, you know, it just becomes dirty and it becomes negative. So draw boundaries and it will change your life. Have a great evening, everyone.